Hello and welcome to Captains of Industry. I'm Chris Bishop. Now we're in Dubai here for a very big captain of industry, a gentleman by the name of Takreem El-Tohamy. He's the General Manager for Middle East and Africa for IBM, one of the big names in world business for 108 years. Thank you very much for joining us here. It's been obviously a long journey for you to the position you are in at the moment. Where were your roots? Where were your roots in business?
Thank you for having me. So I am Egyptian. I was born in Cairo in Egypt. So it's good for my job, Middle East and Africa. So it fits in both countries. My father was a diplomat, and I had the chance to live outside of Egypt, back and forth. And this really, opened my mind to so many things, like how when I was young, countries like in Europe or in the States are different from the countries in our region. So this was always something in my mind. Then also my father, because he was a diplomat, he was working for organizations like the League of Arab States and like the African Union. So since I was very young, I was really listening to the issues of the countries of Middle East and Africa. So this was like a piece of background in my mind about Middle East and Africa and how does this compare to the world or to the other countries.
And what was your path to the IT business?
Yes, so I was studying engineering and I wanted to work in the oil industry. So this was really my thinking when I was at school. And then in my senior year at school, and I was studying at the American University in Cairo at that time, I took a course, I had to do some business or management, as we called it at that time, to graduate, to a few credit hours. So I chose a course called Organization, Structure, and Design. How organizations look like, how do they evolve, and so on. And then a constant name that always came when I was studying this was IBM. And everybody was talking that IBM was a big company. At that time was not 108 years, but was quite old. And it was, we had stages of organization structure, and it was at like the last stage. It was at that time, stage 5. And said IBM is at stage 5. It evolved from a local company to an international company to a multinational company. And it had several management systems and structures and so on. And then the book was talking how stage 6 will look like, and said we don't know, but IBM will decide how stage 6 would look like. So I said, wow, so there is a company that is really deciding how organizations will look like in the future. So this was one thing. And I started, of course, I knew IBM. We were using IBM at school as a computer. But then I also started digging at IBM. So I found that IBM is a very innovative country, focuses on state-of-the-art technology, and not only making computers and programs and so on, but they were doing other things. So I found, for example, that while the researchers of IBM were working on disk, the storage media, with laser, they invented LASIK. So they invented technology could be used for LASIK, for the eye surgery. Like the barcode, for example, was invented in IBM. And then also I found that IBM is not only running the major banks and telcos and governments, but also like the NASA program and the Apollo program and Apollo 11, taking the man to the moon. And the celebrations few months ago, there is a story that said when Apollo 11 was landing, there was like an alarm that sounded, and they said they didn't know what to do, so they looked at the flight manager who's sitting in Houston and asked him. Of course, in the short versions, they don't say what he did. But in the longer versions, what he did is he called the IBM engineers and told them, this light is there a problem? It was not an IBM machine that was doing the light. This was a sensor in the ship. And the IBM engineers told him, okay, wait a second. They checked and told him, okay, you can land. So he took the risk based on the information that IBM gave him. The other interesting thing is about Apollo 13. It had the problem, and they had to come back. And the IBM engineers at that time on the flight, it's online, not like now, but they changed the programs to make the Apollo 13 come back. So I said, wow, this is really a company
so
that
what year
was
did
working
you join, and what stage was technology then?
Yeah, so when I joined, it was the mainframes was there, these big central computers in classrooms that were serving the big organizations. But I joined at an interesting time because the personal computer was coming in. So when the personal computer came in, this was another amazing story that made me see that I took the right decision. I found that IBM had already an IBM personal computer in the drawers for many years. And then at the right time, IBM introduced the personal computer when everybody was asking for it, and we're moving from central computers to departmental computers. And the interesting point that IBM did that I really loved at that time is IBM made the designs of the IBM personal computer open to everybody. It was not like an IP, it was like an open IP. And this generated an industry that people of my generation in the 80s and 90s would know is the IBM PC compatible. And many of the personal computers we see today are really built on these designs.
And it must have been an interesting time for you as well, because as you say, at the one time there was IBM and that was it, but so much competition has sprung up in the last 20 odd years. How difficult has it been to be a captain of industry in that time when you got great competition?
I mean, it is, our industry is really exciting industry. There's so much move, and the industry is, in the past, used to transform really every 10 years, and this transformation is driven by a shift in technology, right? So we talked about the mainframes and then the move into PCs, but then there has been so many shifts. And with each shift, you have new competitors coming in because they have a technology that is suitable for this phase, right? And the interesting thing is that, in the history of IBM and information technology, many competitors come and go, right? So there is not one single competitor that you're dealing with. And the relationship had been always like competition and cooperation with all the players.
And fast forward to today, I mean, there's massive change, and in the middle of it all is this explosion in data here. How much would you calculate is that representative of your business, total business today?
It is really the most important part of the business, and everything revolves around it. So I said that there have been transformations that used to happen every 10 years. We are living now in the middle of a major transformation. And this transformation is so intense because of three factors. One factor is the data you talked about. We're all realizing there's so much data around us, so much data that even is generated every second. You have sensors everywhere that is giving us data. And we're realizing that we can get so much value out of this data. So this is one factor. The second factor is today there is available technology that is reliable and relatively cheap that you can use to mine this data and do things faster and better. I mean, we have cloud, we have artificial intelligence, we have the new waves of blockchain, we have quantum computing. So this technology is there to mine this data. And the last thing, but also it's important, that there is a generation of users who are coming in who are not afraid of using the technology. Actually, they want to use the technology so they can live their life the way they want it. So this is really driving the transformation. But the important thing is this transformation in the IT industry is driving a major transformation in the other industries, be it financial services, be it telecommunications, government, travel and transport, and so on. And we have now new business models that we hear about. We have e-government, online retail, we have digital banking. So all these things are happening because of the transformation in the IT industry. You have even new business models that are being generated. I mean, we have the rideshare, with the Uber model. We have the accommodation, booking. So all these business models are coming. There are new entrants, new competitors coming inside each industry for the major players there.
And quantum technology, we're going to talk about your operations in Africa in the second half, but when is that likely to hit the African continent?
So it is already there, right? And quantum computing is a great tool that has lots of power. that today, when we think of it, it is to solve problems that had infinite possibilities of solutions for it. So it is really suitable for knowing new materials or for new drugs. And we have the first commercial ones today are available, and some companies are using them for new material. We have it now in Africa, and it's in South Africa. We have a research center in South Africa that is working on quantum computing, and we're working on layers. So the first layer is knowledge. So we're connected to several universities in Africa, and we're building skills of how to use quantum computing, because this will be different from what we know, the computers that we know right now. And then there are researchers from the universities that are working, like there is in Wits University in South Africa, they're working on HIV discovering a medicine for HIV. So it is there. We're spreading the knowledge among the university, among the professors, the researchers, the students. So we're ready for it when it is really commercially available for use.
And we talked in the first half a little bit about the business and your origins. This half, we want to talk about the business in Africa, where it's going right now, and particularly blockchain. Everyone's talking about it, how algorithms can change lives. And you believe in Kenya there's something like $20 billion worth of informal trade, which
right.
are the unbanked, which you believe you can actually attract into the system. How are you trying to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, I talked about the technology that is available. So there is the cloud, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and we talked a little bit about quantum. So our approach to Africa, and by the way, we have been in Africa in some places more than 100 years, right? So and we have always been there. So we never went out helping our clients, transform and innovate and so on. So, of course, we know in Africa there are so many people who are not using the formal system. So we try to encourage them to use it. So, for example, and I'll come to the blockchain in a minute, we're helping banks, right, attract people who do not have banking history so they can give them loans. So we use the artificial intelligence tools that we have to look at data other than banking history, because they do not have a banking history. So they can
How do you do that?
They can look at mobile phones, the mobile phone bills. They can look at their social media, so they can see where they went, Instagram, where are they visiting, and you can really, using these tools, categorize, would you as a bank give a loan to this person and how much?
But right? Some people might be a bit skeptical, saying like, I'm getting a credit rating of social media.
No, but this is, I'm just saying this is one of the elements. You look at so many things, like where do you live, do you own a car, how much money you pay on your mobile phone. I'm just, because I thought it's interesting when you look at social media. So there are so many factors and complex algorithms that developed by our research center. So we have two research centers in Africa. There's the one in South Africa and the other one in Nairobi. And this is one of the things they're working on. The other one is blockchain. And blockchain is really an electronic secured ledger that two parties can do business without really knowing each other. So what we're trying to do here is to let businesses, small businesses, when they buy and they sell, how can they communicate together through blockchain and have trust in the system? And as soon as they do that, and this is combined with the credit ratings that we do with people using AI, you will get more and more individuals and more businesses into the economy.
How likely are you going to get more involved, bearing in mind the era of the African free trade area is almost upon us? I mean, it may take a few years to be finalized, but I mean, a way of settling and moving money across borders is going to be more and more fashionable in the continent.
Totally, and I think Africa now is going into a phase that is extremely important, because if you looked in the past, the African countries produce the same thing, the same raw materials, the same commodities. So really, trade between them, okay, it was good to have, but was not essential. But now, with businesses, with FDI, with manufacturing, with foreign money coming in to build things, this will become more and more important, and this will drive people to go into the formal economy. And this is really what we're trying to do, right? So we talked about the transformation, AI, cloud, blockchain, and so on. So we really would like to take our clients and the businesses that work with us into the journey, what we call it, the journey to the cloud, or building cognitive enterprises. These are enterprises where you have data and AI infused in everything they do.
Because isn't that one of the exciting stories of Africa, in the fact that it's got that ability to leapfrog this technology?
Absolutely, because in many places there is no legacy, right? There is no, and you know, I always give the example that cell phones in Africa, you know, are more sophisticated and advanced than landlines. And the mobile money came in Africa, right? It started in Africa. So what we're trying to do now to promote this, as I said, is to build these cognitive enterprises with cloud, with the, you know, and we call it cognitive enterprise and the journey to cloud. And we're looking, when we do the journey to cloud, to take people to the next phase so they can have the infrastructure, they can leverage artificial intelligence and leverage data. We're helping them either move the programs that they had and the systems that they had in the past into the new technology, or write it from the beginning. And we believe, you know, and there's the concept of cloud that everybody's talking about, that is cloud is a technology, it's the way of doing business, right? You need to develop and bring your technology into the cloud era. And we believe that, you know, organizations will have private clouds. These are private clouds that they will have it within their organizations and within the small network of users that they just want to use them. And then they will have public clouds where there will be big clouds that are accessible to everybody. And they will have the choice of putting something on the private cloud and something on the public cloud.
But a lot of the perception in the African continent is that a lot of these technological revolutions are there for people with money. And a lot of people in Africa, as you know, are still below the poverty line, and they feel excluded.
On the contrary, we see that these technologies really help them and contribute to the economy. And as I said, the technology is available, and any business, any African business that want to succeed really needs to use this technology. So when I talked about the transformation in the industries, we see many organizations worldwide disappear because they're not transforming. But the organizations in Africa need to transform, and you'll be surprised. For example, we have in the region insurance companies that are using artificial intelligence to help with claims, right? So they can, when they look at the picture of an accident, use artificial intelligence, they can decide, is this the right claim or not the right claim? And there are companies in Africa that are using chatbots to help their clients, because we're helping our clients to move from customer servicing their clients, to customer care. So the technology is there, the technology is available and is affordable, and it is being embraced by the organizations and by the people in Africa.
And but all this sounds like it's going swimmingly, but you must be coming up against some hurdles, some roadblocks along the way.
So really the thing that we focus on, and I think it is extremely important, because there is a will, right? There is a will in Africa and African countries, organizations, governments to embrace and to transform. But we always come into skills, and that's why skills is really a cornerstone in building any sustainable development. And when we look at Africa, Africa is a young continent. So if in 2050, 80% of the people in Africa would be young people. So this is really the future. So the focus on skills and skills building, and you know, the users I talk about that are not afraid of using technology, but also the main players in the technology. So that's why since the beginning we started with the Africa Skill programs. These are working with universities, ministries of education, so we can look at curricula and offer courses for students so they come out ready for cloud, ready for artificial intelligence, ready for blockchain. And we talked about quantum with some of the universities. We have now even a digital platform that we call it Digital Nation Africa. This is a platform that, you know, looks at the African citizen, and then he can decide if you want to have knowledge about these technologies. For each one, spend 1 hour. He's going to look at it, and this will give him an understanding of the knowledge. If you want to go a little bit deeper, so it will become like a 1 week he can spend on each module, and he gets a kind of certification. And then the other one, which is linked to universities and formal education, you can spend months, 8-9 months, and then get certified. So we are really, this is a big focus for us, because we want to make people not afraid of this technology, but want to embrace it and use it.
I'm going to talk about weather and wildlife in Africa in a second, but first, one that took my eye was Hello Tractor in Nigeria. Now, it strikes me what you're trying to do is a kind of, dare I say it, an Uber for tractors.
So it is really, you know, we want to work with Africa, with African issues, right? And we'll come to weather, and I'll tell you something about it. But yes, you know, there are many farmers, and the farmers, you know, in Africa, it's not like in the other countries in Europe and US where you have hundreds of acres. They have a small part, right? 1 acre or even less. And they want to use the scarce resources that are there, and the best way is to use it in the most efficient way. So it's be it like tractors, like Hello Tractor, so you can find the right tractor at the right time closest to you, so they come and you can use it for an hour or 2 or half a day. So it's like a digital platform where you have all the farmers and all the tractor owners there, so you can use them at the same time. And we're doing the same even with transporting crops, because you have many farmers in Africa that they lose lots of the crops because they cannot transport in the right way, in the most refrigerated way. So again, we have another platform. We can have, you know, people with trucks and even with small buses who are free. They can go in and move from Kenya to Mombasa, for example, the fruits and vegetables.
What about connectivity and power issues, though? Are you not facing it in some countries? I mean, I know in particular Nigeria has a dearth of electricity. Doesn't that hold back what you're trying to do?
It definitely slows things a little bit, but it should not be an obstacle, right? We have to live with it. So this is a reality, and things are getting better. So my philosophy is we do not use this as an excuse not to do something. We go for it, and this will force the change. This will force the government and the utility companies to do better. So yes, it is a challenge. It's not a perfect situation, but the answer is go for it, and this will drive things to get better.
And what about, for want of a better word, predicting the future? I mean, Africa's suffered from a lot of natural disasters, flooding, whatever later. Now, you're claiming that you can come up with data that will actually predict when these things come in. How is this going to work?
So really, I mean, the weather company is an IBM company, and it was focused on places outside Africa. So bringing Africa into the picture, this is what we're bringing. So we're expanding the weather company work into Africa. And as I said, we have research centers, and the research centers we have are really focused on really solving African issues. So I talked, for example, about the land and how people in Africa have less than an acre. When you go satellite images, they don't really can find less than an acre. So our research team is working in how to put tools that you can distinguish the acres. Now, so you come to the weather company. So we're putting sensors in Africa. We're collecting the data. We're building now with a university in Holland, the University of Delft. We're building models to an atlas for the past 10 years of the weather situation in Africa for the past 10 years. And then looking at past data, looking at current changes in the environment, you can predict what will happen when, where would it rain, and so on. And the good thing is that now we'll be able to advise the farmers, because many of the farmers, they farm based on what their parents and grandparents taught them. You know, things are different. The land is not the same, the rain is not the same, the fertilizers are not the same. So we're able to incorporate this with the unions in the agriculture unions, so they can do it.
But my question to you is, as a private company, are you going to? What about if you could predict there was going to be a typhoon that's going to hit the coast of a certain African country, I mean, what would you do? Would you go to the government and say, look, this time next year there's going to be a big problem? Would you do that?
Yeah, definitely. And this is really our job, is to make the data available to the users. So what we can do is can predict and tell there is a chance of this is happening here at that time. And of course, the authorities will take the...
And last but not least, you think that also this data collection can also help preserve the wildlife of Africa?
Yeah, definitely. And again, as I said, there is lots of data coming from everywhere, and we have the data mining and artificial intelligence. So what we did in Africa with one of the reserves is that we tagged the animals, and we studied the behavior of the animals when they're hunting or being hunted, and when there are poachers coming in. And we could, on the rangers in the wild reserve, they can look at their computer. They can, based on the pattern they see, it will flag with them that are poachers in the area. So this is really some of the applications. And then I go back again to the point of saying that really our job, or the job I see for myself, is really we need to bring this, or we make our organizations, the African organizations, as I said, cognitive, enterprising, using the cloud. And the way of making the cloud is make it available to everybody, and also make it open. And that's why, as part of our strategies, we want to have open systems so people can use, and this will make it even more affordable. So we acquired recently a company called Red Hat. This was like a $34 billion acquisition, which really what it does, it makes the cloud and the technology open, so the users can use it on their private clouds or on any of the public clouds that are there. This what would make the technology available and affordable to the people in Africa.
Thank you very much indeed for that technological journey across the African continent. I've been speaking to Takreem El-Tohamy, the head of Middle East and Africa for IBM. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for in this edition of Captains of Industry. From me, Chris Bishop in Dubai, it's goodbye.